Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Here's the Thing. So, as you guys can tell, the background's a little different. Today, we actually are going to have our first guest. I am so excited to bring on the first guest of this podcast. So, for those who don't already know, I love to read books and poems that are centered around personal growth, development, all that good stuff. And I'm always looking for new ways to improve myself as a person. So for this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the topic of fear of failure. And I'm so excited for you guys to meet this week's guest. All right, everybody, welcome our first guest. This is actually my powerlifting coach. For those who don't already know, I've been powerlifting for a little over a year and a half now. So hello, welcome. Hello. If you want to give yourself a little introduction to the people.
Hey, my name is Matthew Lua. I'm a powerlifting coach about 2 years now. I probably started powerlifting a couple months before I was coaching. I currently attend Cal State San Bernardino. I'm majoring in physics with a minor in kinesiology, so that's kind of my background in that. Current certification, I'm working on another one for more focused on CPT prep with, I believe it's NSCM.
All right, cool. So just a little brief on our friendship and then our coaching background as well. I think we've been friends for almost, I think it's 5 years. I think it's been almost 5 years we've been friends.
Since 2019.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we've been friends since 2019, but you became my coach a little over a year and a half now. Back in high school, I know we were both athletes, dual sport athletes. I played water polo and roller derby for those who don't already know. And in high school, you played?
In high school, I played mainly football. I mean, I mingled with track and field, but I wasn't really that committed. So that's kind of where I got my beginning in coaching. That's what consumed me at the time. And I did see myself becoming a football coach initially, a full-time powerlifting coach. And yeah, it's changed my life so much.
I know that your brother was one of the first people you ever started coaching.
Yeah, he was my first client, actually. And then you were my first ever client that's not my family. Did you know you were my first client?
Yes and no. I knew you were already coaching your brother, but I didn't know yet if you were already coaching other people because you had already been powerlifting. Wasn't too sure if you, your total, coaching background, but I was just kind of in it just for fun, to be honest.
So, going off of that, in our initial relationship, with knowing that I was a newer coach and maybe not as experienced as others, some might say, to the common person, they were like, why would you pick somebody that may not have the most knowledge at the time that's starting out? Most people want to jump right straight to the top of a knowledgeable person. Did you trust me initially, or did you really see it as a risk of me coaching you, or what were your thoughts on me being a newer coach at the time?
I knew there was a risk to reward ratio with going with a newer coach, but my powerlifting background was slim to none. So I think at the time I wasn't really risking anything, and I don't think I got to that point. I wasn't at that point yet where you run the risk of failing. I had nothing to fail at yet.
Yeah.
There was no background yet, so I don't really think that then I was afraid to fail because I hadn't started yet. Mm-hmm. But I think as time has gone on and I've progressed, I think that fear has grown just a little bit more every single day. Yes, I'm 20 times better at it now than from day one.
You and me both.
But still, I feel no matter how experienced and seasoned you get, I think regardless, you're always going to have some initial fear, like I think in the beginning you fear like to get injured.
Yeah.
You fear to not grow, but when you're just starting, I think people expect you to just climb super fast to the top, and then they realize quickly that that's not the case.
Yeah, especially when I was starting powerlifting, it was way less information than there was now. So a lot of people saw it as a dangerous sport and like lifting heavy is bad for you. You know, the thing a lot of people are indoctrinated to think about lifting heavy, not really as popular anymore, you could say. But back then there was way less information and it was more risky, I guess, to go that route.
Yeah. So recently I was reading this book. It's called F the Shoulds, Do the Wants by Tricia Huffman. And I was reading this quote and it says, "I'll wonder, is that my inner knowing or is it a fear? No one could possibly know you better than you. We don't even give ourselves a chance to be who we are." So when you hear that quote and it talks about your inner knowing and like the inner fear that you have, when you started growing as a coach and you saw your first couple of clients, you saw their initial progression. Everybody experiences the so-called like newbie gains. So when you first saw their progression and you saw how it positively impacted them, it made them grow a deeper love for powerlifting. And then that first initial bump in the road that you saw with all of your clients, what kind of fears and what, as a coach, how does that make you feel? How do you react to something like that when you see your clients kind of hit a wall and you see how it's negatively impacting them?
So I guess I had a insecure beginning to my coaching career. I guess it's not the safest place to start, especially if you don't have X amount of experience to some people, especially the previous generation of powerlifters. It's kind of frowned upon if you don't have X amount of experience per se, even though the knowledge is so much different and it's more accessible nowadays than it might have been before. So there were a lot of people that necessarily did not say the kindest things about me when I was first starting. So I try not to let it affect me, but, you know, we're all human. And it did kind of play a role into the back of my mind when sometimes I didn't feel like I knew what I was completely doing. Not all the way. In meet prep especially, that was very intimidating the first time I had to take someone through a meet prep. But I had a very good mentor that helped me out through these things in my early days.
Even from an athlete's perspective, I don't coach anybody. I just compete. I just train. I just go to the gym. I compete, hit the platform, call it a day. I don't coach anybody. So all the pressure that I feel is all just pressure I put on myself. So I couldn't imagine, like, in a coach's shoes, how people depend on you heavily. Because I know I depend on you a lot. I depend on you for my programming, to monitor like my weight cuts. So with that kind of pressure, like, what kind of feelings and thoughts come from, I could let this person down right now? The smallest hiccup I do could totally just make everything go sideways right now.
Maybe currently it doesn't really affect me as much. Maybe recently more, just because I had to send someone to nationals, so the highest stakes possible was a little intimidating, but and an 8-week prep, but nothing new to me. I've taken on people 8 weeks out, 5 weeks out, and we've made good progress in a short amount of time, and I still coach them to this day. So that wasn't intimidating me as it used to be, but the amount of responsibility you have in a day-to-day basis with them, it's really maybe not time-consuming, but it does take a lot out of you sometimes. Like, I'm not necessarily really worried about myself and my own training, even though I am a competitive athlete and want myself to be good. I'm not really worried about myself at the end of the day. I find myself worrying more about the people that depend on me.
Yeah,
And
there's always a lot on your plate. There's a lot to
yes.
balance. I feel like that as a coach, you balance way more than we, the athletes, do. And we go into our training sessions very intense sometimes during a really important time in a comp prep. And I know for me personally, the mental battle with lifting has always been something that like I've struggled with. So I know that like you as a coach trying to like guide me through those mental barriers, because a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people in powerlifting will agree that lifting is so much more mental than it is physical sometimes.
Definitely.
So being able to push past like all of those feelings, and because sometimes it's overwhelming. Those feelings are a lot, and it's really hard to deal with them on your own. So I know as an athlete, sometimes we put that pressure onto our coach.
Definitely. Sometimes I do feel the pressure of that with some of my athletes. Sometimes it even affects my own training.
So I'm roughly 4 weeks out for my third comp in my career. Also my third comp with you.
Third comp, yeah.
Guys, have been my first and only coach I've ever had.
In almost a year, too. In almost a year.
Almost, yeah. I've almost been my third comp in almost a year. That's crazy. So since this is my third comp, I feel like from my first comp, I've done a complete 180. I remember my first comp. I didn't even want to do it. I was so scared.
Yeah, I had to trick you into doing that competition.
I feel like I was so scared to hit the platform, and I think it was that fear of not being ready. But I think we have that fear to fail at it because we think we have something to prove to others. But in all honesty, it sounds cheesy, but it's such a you versus you thing. You do go up against like other people, but everyone's journey isn't the same. So I think what's helped me push past that fear of hitting the platform is knowing that regardless of where I place against other people, that I improved something in myself, whether it's in my strength or it's just something mental or like me as a person has changed. I think from my first comp to now, I now have a sense of eagerness to hit the platform, and I think my mentality has totally changed from the first comp to the second one, because I know my first comp we did kind of like hit some bumps in the road the week of my comp. So I know we related the fear of failure to our own personal lives in powerlifting, but I think this is a topic that applies to anything. Fear of failure in school, in your career. I know obviously we're both students, so finishing our degree is like really important to the both of us, and I know I have the fear of not finishing my degree, so I think fear of failure is something that applies to everybody, and we all at one point or another experience these feelings.
Definitely. The fear of failure has been very constant throughout my life, whether it was through sports or academics. It's always been there, and probably will be until I finish my post-grad. And even after that, in my career, it's a constant factor. It keeps you, I guess, on edge and keeps you aware and from falling behind the rest of the people.
Yeah. So, but I think learning how to handle the emotions that come from fear of failure, though the fear of failure is never going to go away. We're always going to have those feelings inside of us. So I think being able to handle them properly and learn how to grow from it is totally going to boost your development as a person when you learn how to handle these emotions and these feelings. I know I've become a more level-headed person once I figured out how to calm my emotions inside and outside of powerlifting.
Definitely. I feel like before I was more sporadic, all over the place, and the fear of failure sometimes it made me just avoid my problems and put them off. And I guess what I've underwent because of powerlifting and other things, it's made me more pragmatic and to attack these problems and not let them intimidate me. And when I attack the issue head on, it's more beneficial to me in all areas of life.
This is your daily reminder to not let the fear of failure hold you back from new and exciting adventures. Is there a daily reminder you want to give to everybody today?
This is your daily reminder to not let people intimidate you when you might be entering something you love, are passionate about, that you may not have had the most time in, but you feel like you see yourself really making an impact in this field or area of your life. And don't let that barrier stop you or people.
Awesome. All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. First guest. Mm-hmm. Should get like a plaque or something. First, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Here's the thing, podcast.
Here's the thing. We had our first guest.
Yes. Here's the thing.
All right. Well, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, listening. It's always a good time. And I will chat with you guys next week.